Your attention is like sunlight. Whatever you consistently shine it upon will grow stronger, more vibrant, and more present in your life. And that is the thought for today. Welcome to 7 Good Minutes. I'm Clyde Lee Dennis. Thanks for joining me for what I believe will be 7 of the most enriching minutes of your day. In today's episode of 7 Good Minutes, we talk about how what you focus on grows and transforms your life through attention. Enjoy. There's an ancient truth that runs through every wisdom tradition, every psychology textbook, and every success story you've ever heard. What you focus on grows. It sounds simple, almost too simple to be profound. But this principle is perhaps the most powerful tool you have for shaping your experience of life, your relationships, and your future. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how your attention acts like sunlight and water to whatever you direct it toward, and how you can consciously choose to cultivate what you want more of in your life. Think about a garden for a moment. The plants that receive your attention, the ones you water, tend to, and care for, are the ones that flourish. The weeds you ignore eventually wither, while the flowers you nurture bloom more beautifully. Your mind works in much the same way. The thoughts, emotions, and experiences you focus on are the ones that grow stronger and more prominent in your life. This isn't just metaphorical, it's neurological. Your brain literally rewires itself based on what you repeatedly focus on. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, and it means that the neural pathways you use most often become stronger and more automatic. When you consistently focus on gratitude, your brain becomes better at noticing things to be grateful for. When you habitually focus on problems, your mind becomes expert at finding what's wrong. But here's what's both liberating and challenging about this truth. You have more control over your focus than you might realize, and less control than you might want. You can't simply decide to never think negative thoughts again, but you can learn to notice where your attention goes and gently guide it toward what serves you. Most of us have never been taught how to manage our attention consciously. We let it wander wherever it wants to go, often pulled by the loudest voice, the most urgent demand, or the most familiar worry. We focus on what's wrong in our relationships instead of what's working. We dwell on our failures instead of celebrating our progress. We give our mental energy to fears about the future instead of appreciating the present moment. This unconscious focus creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you constantly focus on what's lacking in your life, you train your brain to notice scarcity everywhere. When you habitually focus on what might go wrong, you create anxiety and miss opportunities for joy. When you repeatedly focus on other people's flaws, you damage your relationships and your own peace of mind. But the beautiful flip side is equally true. When you consciously focus on what's working in your life, you begin to see more evidence of success and abundance. When you direct your attention to the good in people, you start to experience better relationships. When you focus on possibilities instead of problems, you become more creative and resourceful. This doesn't mean ignoring real challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing where to invest your mental energy wisely. Problems need attention to be solved, but they don't need to consume your entire mental landscape. You can acknowledge difficulties while still choosing to focus primarily on solutions, growth, and what's possible. One of the most powerful ways to practice this principle is through gratitude. When you focus on what you're grateful for, you're literally training your brain to notice the good in your life. This isn't about forcing fake positivity. It's about balancing your natural tendency to focus on problems by deliberately noticing what's already working. You can also apply this principle to your relationships. Instead of focusing on what annoys you about your partner, friend, or colleague, try focusing on what you appreciate about them. Notice how this shift in attention changes not just how you feel about them, but how they respond to you. People tend to rise to meet the version of themselves that you see and focus on. In your work or creative pursuits, focus on progress rather than perfection. Instead of dwelling on how far you have to go, celebrate how far you've come. Instead of focusing on what you can't do yet, focus on what you're learning and how you're growing. This shift in attention will fuel your motivation and accelerate your development. The practice of conscious focus also applies to your self-talk. Notice whether you're focusing on your mistakes and shortcomings or on your efforts and improvements. Are you dwelling on past failures or focusing on future possibilities? The story you tell yourself through your focus becomes the reality you experience. This principle works in your daily experience too. When you focus on how tired you are, you feel more tired. When you focus on how stressed you are, stress increases. But when you focus on your breath, on the present moment, on something beautiful around you, your entire state can shift in seconds. Learning to direct your focus consciously is like learning to drive. At first, it requires deliberate effort and attention. You have to keep catching yourself when your mind wanders to unproductive places and gently guide it back to what serves you. But with practice, it becomes more natural, more automatic. Start small with this practice. Choose one area of your life where you want to see growth. Maybe it's your health, your relationships, your work, or your inner peace. For the next week, consciously focus on what's working in that area, what you're grateful for, what's improving, what's possible. Notice what happens. Remember, you're not trying to control your thoughts completely. That's impossible and exhausting. You're simply becoming more aware of where your attention goes and making conscious choices about where to direct it. You're becoming the gardener of your own mind, choosing to water the plants you want to see flourish. What you focus on grows. This is both a warning and a promise. It's a warning to be mindful of where you direct your precious mental energy, and it's a promise that you have the power to cultivate more of whatever you want to experience in your life, simply by choosing to focus on it consistently and consciously. Your attention is like sunlight. Whatever you consistently shine it upon will grow stronger, more vibrant, and more present in your life. That does it for today's episode of 7 Good Minutes. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on the platform you're listening on. Until next time, let's be civil to one another out there. Thanks for listening.